We've been covering the issues with social media. Of course, Facebook is in the news every single day, it seems, with another terrible story about how they have been running their business. Of course, so much so they changed the name to Meta last week. So how do you fix these platforms? With everything that we've heard about Facebook, a.k.a. Meta, seems like it's an issue that needs to be fixed. Well, how do we do it? Ian Bogost joins us on the line. He's a contributing writer at The Atlantic and the director of the Film and Media Studies program at Washington University in St. Louis. Ian, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much.
Listen, I read your latest piece in The Atlantic on this very subject, and you have my attention. I want to start off this interview with the way you start off your piece, talking about Dunbar's number. This is the number proposed by a British psychologist, Robin Dunbar 3 decades ago, about the friends and people we have in our lives. Let's start off on that. What is Dunbar's number, and why is it important in this instance?
So the idea that Dunbar had is that there's a biological limit to the meaningful relationships that we can develop and maintain. And, people dispute the specifics of the number, but if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? Like, how many people can you have meaningful, close relationships with? And it turns out that you do most of that work with a handful of people, 5 to 15 kind of close friends, family members. And the 150 number, which is sometimes called Dunbar's number, that's like the maximum, productive bonds that you might expect to have, including all of the kind of work relationships, folks from your past and whatnot, that you remain connected to in some meaningful way. And, of course, that number is much lower for many people. But with social media, we tend to assume it's much higher, right? I should be connected to everybody all the time in the world. And that's one of the things that services like Facebook assume.
So we've gone far beyond that magic number of 150. We're in the thousands of people we have to have these connections from. What happens when it goes to that? What happens?
Well, the first thing that happens is the relationships stop being meaningful. Like Dunbar's whole idea was that we're interested in maintaining connections to other people in order that they can improve our lives and that we can, deepen those bonds, not in order that we can kind of collect them as resources to exploit later, or that we can use them as vectors for our every thought. So, the very notion of being connected to thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of people, that somehow we're right, that came out of the logic of internet companies in the first place, who have billions of users, and thought we should be able to service the whole globe with our services rather than a smaller, maybe more local constituency.
So breaking these companies up, is that the solution?
Well, breaking these companies up might have some benefit, but it doesn't solve this problem of mega scale, as we sometimes call it, that idea that, if you break up Facebook into WhatsApp and Instagram and Facebook, you still have companies that are reaching billions of people around the world and that are encouraging those people to talk to and to create discourse for as many people as possible. So I don't think that breaking the companies up solves the fundamental problem of getting us to have less of these interactions with fewer people to make them more meaningful.
We're with Ian Bogost. He's a contributing writer at The Atlantic. His latest in The Atlantic is titled People Aren't Meant to Talk This Much, and we're discussing that piece with them right now. Okay, so if breaking up these companies won't solve the problem, what are some common sense things that we should be doing?
Well, one of the things that really interests me is limitations and constraints, and that's something that we sometimes reject. Like, I don't want to have any limits. I want to be able to do whatever I want. But one of the most delightful things about art and culture and media is when they impose these restrictions on us. And if you think about Twitter as just an easy example that kind of connects these dots, you can write a tweet and it's 280 characters. And you could write another one, of course, but what structures your interaction with that platform is knowing that this short size of a kind of quip is what you're working with. So I wonder if that same kind of restriction not just applied to the length of the video you make, but the number of people it reaches. Like, why should something that I say be visible forever or be able to reach hundreds of thousands, millions of people? Maybe imposing new kinds of limitations, which could be regulatable, by the way, because we can point to them and verify that they're happening. That might dampen the virality and the impacts of this sort of out-of-control scale of communication that we see today.
Ian, do you see things are happening, changing in people's perspectives? You know, because you mentioned people want the freedom to just do and say whatever they want, and now you mentioned, oh, maybe we can have some common sense restrictions here.
Yeah.
Are people's perceptions changing where we can get to that point without people just crying, "You're trying to restrict my freedom"?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think that people don't know what they want generally, but they have some idea of what feels good and bad, and so introducing new opportunities to test out some of these ideas and slowly roll them out might be helpful. But I also think that we have reached something resembling a tipping point for dissatisfaction with social media and with Facebook in particular. And so the openness to alternatives is greater than it ever has been, although I think that window will close quite soon.
Is your biggest ally right now the Facebook papers?
The Facebook papers are interesting because they kind of are the same thing we see on social media in a way. Like there's this dump of information. We don't really know what any of it means. We have to sort through it every day to find new stuff. And so, I think it almost reproduces some of the same issues with social media. But it is giving us a window into how the company operates, or at least what we can start to discern about how they've struggled with these challenges. And so I see the Facebook papers as a net positive for having opened the door to this kind of conversation.
And it leads me to two words, the algorithm. and when it comes to restrictions or regulations, how focused should they be on the algorithm?
We use this word, the algorithm. It's almost meaningless. It's kind of a nickname or an attempt to define how extremely complex software works. And in some cases, with machine learning and other means of AI development, even the companies that make these tools don't know how they work. They're kind of running on their own. So I think it's an almost mythical idea. Instead of thinking about how the algorithm works, let's think about the design of the systems, how we interact with them, what kind of interactions that they produce, and focus on interventions that we have control over rather than the ones that we don't.
Ian, at one point in your piece, you mention Google Plus, which didn't have a long future ahead of it, but it did try and do certain things. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, Google Plus, of course, is the now dead Google social network, and it arose in the late aughts, early 2010s, and it wasn't perfect. And one of the things that they tried to do in designing Google Plus was to embrace this idea that we actually have different social circles. And that was explicit. This idea of circles was built into the software, and so the software made you sort of define, these are my family, these are my coworkers. And by doing that, it created these domains in which you'd have different sorts of interactions for different communities. And those communities might be quite small. The things that you share with your family are different from the ones that you share with folks you went to school with, or kind of the extended crew that you might send a Christmas card to. So it's a really simple example of something that attempted to bake in the Dunbar concept, this idea of a kind of restricted circle of social interactions, into the software itself. It's just that it got abandoned in favor of endless engagement on services like Facebook.
Ian, any company that you would say we should give some kudos to a social media network right now that's doing a good job?
I think everybody's struggling to do a good job precisely because they have to address the largest number of people all the time. There's companies like Pinterest and like Snap that have some kind of natural divisions or constraints built into their services, but that is not where the majority of global discourse is happening. So I don't think it's so much a matter of like which company is doing it well or poorly, but how the whole technology sector, and especially the consumer social media sector, has been drawn into this idea of mega scale and pushed to grow their user bases, and then to encourage those users to do as much as possible, as often as possible on the platforms.
Run, don't walk over to The Atlantic and check out Ian Bogost's latest piece called People Aren't Meant to Talk This Much. It was fascinating, Ian, and so was this interview. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
That's Ian Bogost, writer at The Atlantic, director of the Film and Media Studies program at Washington University in St. Louis.